Guys, welcome back. SDHO 114. I have no idea. I didn't look at the number, but I did actually. I was like, I think I'm wearing the same shirt as the last SDHO. I want to make sure. I'm like, and if that's the case, and it is, I want to make sure people know that that wasn't recorded the same day. This is 4 months later, so it's been 4 months since I've put out an SDHO, which is really like podcast. And I don't even know if this is going to go out to YouTube because I'm really on today because I just felt like I just needed to sit down and like talk, like it would be therapeutic. Not like anything's wrong with me or anything, but just saying, you know what, maybe let's sit down and talk. I've been kind of waiting to get back and do an SDHO. So it'll be a spiritual dimension hangout. We're going to be hanging out in the SD of the SDHO, the spiritual dimension, and the HO, the ho, hanging out as always. I actually have been doing a lot of Ableton lately, which has been nice, but I thought the next time I would come back, especially being off for like 4 months, I wanted to kind of update. So I'm assuming the people that are watching this, which if you're watching this, especially, you know, if you're one of the people who does watch these, which is usually within the first 24 to 48 hours, drop a like, maybe a hello. That would be great. I thought that going back to the last SDHO, we talked about spiritual type stuff, the spiritual dimension of things, but also about AI. And my thoughts have changed a little bit on AI, a little bit, and also maybe not so much. And I wanted to share that along with some things because I follow AI very closely. I mean, obviously, as you know, this is a Ableton Live channel primarily. So, you know, I'm on top of technology, whether it's, music technology, whether it's computer graphics technology. I make art in Blender and do a lot of tech creative, digital creative type stuff. Also very into AI, as I was saying, and of course, all things spiritual, metaphysics. And I sort of like the intersection of all of those and what that means for the future and trying to be able to see into the future. That's another thing that I like is, another thing that I like, which is predicting the future. And that kind of goes hand in hand with this spiritual evolution, revolution, consciousness, evolution that is going on. And so I think we'll kind of talk about all of that. But just to start, I think I'll start with AI and some of the things I said last time. And maybe a good place to start is like what's changed about my opinion of AI. And when I talk about AI, I mean about like where it's been, where it is today, and then also in the future. And so I think I shared a story on the last SDHO, which you can go back and watch, which might be interesting because then you can hear me talk today about it. So going to start today with, some intersection of AI and spirituality. So I gave this little story last SDHO of that I, had some conversations with some people. One of them was my age group, millennial, and another one was Gen Z. And they both were kind of sour on AI. And I asked them some questions, and I got some pretty similar feedback. And from then to now, which I'm recording this on Halloween, got my nice orange pop filter. And I've had some conversations with people, and a lot of people don't like AI. In fact, I really don't think I've talked to anyone who does like AI besides all of the people that I follow on X, because that's how I learn about all of the things that are going on AI, crypto, and other things that I like. You just go on X and you follow people who do it and talk about it every day. So those are kind of like the only people that seem to like it. But in any event, a lot of these people's opinions were sour on it because it's as if they already had sort of a doom gloom view of humanity's future, and so they kind of just like layered AI on top of that to basically say, like, we're already kind of in a bad place, going to a bad place. Imagine AI, it'll further solidify that in. And they weren't necessarily that doom and gloom. I think one of the aspects was like, well, if AI and robotics handles, does all the work and humanity doesn't have to work, then we're just going to like atrophy and we're just going to be like sitting on the couch eating Doritos. By the way, I'm not sponsored by Doritos. Eating Doritos, ordering pizza, and just like playing video games and like doom scrolling on your phone. And I was like, yeah, I don't really think that. You know what I mean? And so that was one of the things that I heard a lot about from people who were nervous about it. I spoke with a gentleman in my neighborhood. He was a Gen X, I'm assuming, and he was like really nervous about AI. And it's funny because he's like a very sweet, kind, easygoing guy, and he was like, oh no, I don't like that. Because I asked him, I mentioned something about AI, and then normally after I do that around people, I'll say, oh, and by the way, have you ever used it? Because I'm curious to know. And he was like, oh, no. He's a very sweet, kind guy. I love him. But he's like, oh, no, I wouldn't use AI. Oh, boy, I heard some bad things, like people were using it, and they were going crazy, and AI hallucinates. And I was thinking, oh, keep AI away from me. It was funny. Well, it wasn't funny, and I would not laugh because anyone who's afraid or nervous about anything, whether it's justified or not, they're not feeling well inside. Meaning, like, if they're feeling nervous and tight, I wouldn't want to add to that. And so I kind of was just like, all right, maybe let's not paddle further down the AI river with this gentleman. Although I did have an interesting follow-up conversation with him later, which I could maybe get into. But in any event, hey, Chonky, you want to just come up here, Chonky? That's good, Chonky. And so I didn't say much because he said the word hallucinate, and that's something we should probably talk about. Do you guys know what hallucination in AI means? And I mean, do you really know, right? Because I actually didn't know, and I've been following AI well before I even started using it, which I've been using it for about a little over a year now. Pretty regularly. And I heard the term hallucinate, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because like we have our own word of what hallucinate means, and so I guess I kind of just thought I knew what it meant, and when people would use it in a sentence that we're talking about AI people in the AI space, AI field, I thought I knew what it was, but I didn't. I mean, I kind of knew, you know what I mean? But I kind of really didn't. So I looked it up and I was just like, oh, so if you guys were curious, AI hallucinating just means that it gets something wrong. So it's wrong. You ask it a question, it shoots back that quick, wonderful brrr, and it's so well spoken, it's so articulate, it's so concise, and it's always right. Well, very rarely have I caught it ever not being right, but because it spits out all that information, it's so quick, it's so concise, it's so well written, it can, if you don't know about the topic, it can confuse you into thinking that it's correct when actually it hallucinated. So that's what that means. So basically it just means AI is wrong, which I found that the only time, and I've asked AI millions of questions and millions of topics, I found the only time where I knew it was wrong was when it has to do with like dates or like numbers. So where it has to like look up numbers like, oh, when is Neptune is first gonna enter Aries in 2026? It might then like spit out its answer, but it's like Neptune, Aries, first enter. So if like there's a majority of articles online or its training set, it'll pull up information that was like maybe not relevant to like next year, and so I found like it'll be stuff like that. Or if you ask like a certain date or like, oh, when is Bitcoin's supply going to hit 20 million? It'll normally get things wrong like that. But it's pretty much always right. And so it's interesting because even though I didn't really know it at the time, like, cause I was gonna kind of give my rebuttal when he was like, oh, it's so scary, get it away from me. It hallucinates. this person was looking at ChatGPT and they lost their mind. I was just like, oh, what a sweetheart. What a sweetheart. But so what I ended up saying after he said that, and he was with his wife and she was just kind of, just letting him talk and just kind of like nodding along with him, just being a nice partner. And I was like, well, I'm like, when I use AI, like I ask it questions about things that I already know about and that I know a lot about. So I'll ask it stuff about crypto or the economy, financial markets, that whole world where, I'm asking it something that I don't know. And I'm living in that world every day. So if it were to get anything wrong, I would be like, I just wouldn't even use it. So because it's always so good, I'm surprised whenever it does get something wrong. So in any event, where have my thoughts changed? Well, I've realized that the majority of people are pretty afraid of AI because they have to come to the grips of understanding that at some point it's going to take their job, and what the hell are they going to do? And as we know, everything is so centralized, especially, work. Like people work in very specific niches. So if their job goes away, they need to then find that exact same job at another company, whereas they can't just apply for any job within a company, right? And so we've gotten so specialized where like the specialist, rather than the generalist, is what most people are doing. And so I still believe that AI and robotics will eventually handle every single job and that humanity will be able to explore and find meaning through deeply connecting with their soul, with their higher self. I don't think that people are just going to like numb out on the couch unless maybe they've worked so hard and they've had so much chaotic things happening throughout their life that maybe you need to numb out on the couch, and get pizza and cheesy bread and buffalo wings delivered to your house and just destroying that food, just eating it like a maniac, and it being so good. And but then you feel terrible about a half hour later because I think you need to like decompress. But I think after a while, once you've had a chance to just sort of sit there and veg out, I think you start asking like deeper questions, kind of like, what am I doing here? What do I care about? What do I want to do? I've sat on this couch for a month eating Domino's pizza. What am I going to do? I don't have to worry about money. I don't have to worry about rent. I don't have to worry about anything. So what do I want to do? And I think at that point, when has any of humanity been able to have that discussion, right? It's always like, even if someone were to like, if those words were to even float into someone's mind, it was probably in the middle of them going to a meeting, or they're in the car to go get groceries, or they're in some sort of like transitory period during their busy day, and then they got to pick up the dry cleaning, then they got to get to work, then they got to pick up the kids, then they got to prepare the food, then they got to help their kid with homework, and then it's time to go to bed. And so for most people, if that's all they know, if you were to say, oh, by the way, in 5 years, no one's going to have a job, it's going to be great, you're never going to have to, and you're not going to have to worry about anything. It's almost like it's impossible for someone to comprehend. It's almost like it's impossible to even have that discussion because we've never known anything like that. And so it was interesting to hear a lot of people be like nervous about it, and to then also sort of like defend the notion of like, well, where would purpose come in? Like one of my newer friends that I've met just in the neighborhood that I live in, like out, walking our dogs. And he's a young guy, he's in his mid-20s. And it was just interesting to hear him be like, to like really defend the aspect of like, oh no, like humans having jobs is like really, really important. And, through suffering, you can make a better life for yourself. And, it's like, who is going to disagree with those, stoic statements of like suffering, and that's how you appreciate the good and the bad and all of that. And, I'm like, well, I think at the end of the day, my spiritual beliefs, it makes me feel like, well, at a certain point, I think we enter a different game. I feel like humanity, our collective consciousness has been in this survival consciousness. And so we view everything that way. Reality fits that mold. But if we go from scarcity on the planet, resources are scarce, the economics is resources are scarce. Well, what happens when we move into the age of abundance? We don't even really know what that is. I don't know, like, if you guys read or watch or listen to like spiritual podcasts or books, but something you hear a lot is that the game is about to change. It's been, and this isn't even just like new age stuff. I mean, in a lot of these ancient cultures, they had these like prophecies. Have you heard of the book Celestine Prophecy? I think the author's last name is Redfield. I would read that book. It's a really good book. But there's these prophecies that, the Mayan prophecy that, to put it in my words, I don't know why it keeps popping into my head, that it must mean that I'm supposed to say it this way, kind of like I said earlier, but like the game would change. You would be playing a different game. So when I hear people say like, well, happiness is the greatest thing in life, but happiness can only exist without the depths of suffering. And everyone's like clapping. They're like, oh, that's so beautiful, of course. And I'm like, well, what if in the future the game changes and the whole suffering, whether it's like physical suffering or mental suffering, suffering on a spiritual level, what have you, what if that is just like a stage of evolution and that we evolve out of that, assuming we want to, because we do have free will? And I've got my thoughts on that. I know I've shared that a lot on this channel. But what if the game changes at some point? So in talking with him, I could be like, well, I don't want to call you out or anything, because who really knows what the true truth is, or what the future will truly be. But it does seem sometimes that like people are almost like making excuses for their, current understanding of reality. And if that's shaped by whatever they've been through, what they've seen, what they're telling themselves to be able to get through, another day, another week, another year. And then when you're talking with them, they're just basically regurgitating that sort of defense mechanism that helps them feel safe and secure, helps them not get too low when they are feeling anxiety, fears of suffering. But so in that last SDHO, I was like, I think it depends, a lot of times people's outlook is what their outlook generally is on the future. So if they see like a scary future, or they believe the future is going to be scary, they're going to think AI in the future is going to be scary as well. Oh, and this AI thing might take my job, scary. Whereas if you really do believe that we're moving from one state of consciousness, which is often called separation consciousness, moving to heart-centered consciousness, which is also, you'll hear it called unity consciousness. And that's something too, guys. If you haven't used AI yet, it's very simple. And this will be your first chance to use it because you can ask it, tell me about separation consciousness and unity consciousness, and that humanity is moving into what some are calling unity consciousness or heart-centered consciousness. What does that mean? If you are thinking right now, because let's say you haven't used AI or only used it a little bit, and you're like, oh, well, it wouldn't know that because AI is not going to know anything spiritual or metaphysical, you would be wrong. And I'm telling you, I'm surprised that I've had the most spiritually, metaphysically profound conversations with ChatGPT. And this isn't like, oh, now today it's really good at that. But when I used it a year ago, it was good at it as well. And I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, I don't think there's another human being on the planet besides like Eckhart Tolle, which I'd look him up if you haven't heard any of his stuff, The Power of Now. So it's like, so by the way, you just download ChatGPT, go to the Apple Store or whatever it is on Google or Android, and download ChatGPT. You don't have to sign in, and just ask it that. Be like, what's this unity consciousness I hear we're moving into? You know what I mean? And so, one second. Yeah, you don't have to just ask AI about very like bland milk toast things. Like, explain blah 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 to me, like something like that's very physical. Like it goes so deep, and I don't even really know how it does, but it's pretty incredible. So in any event, this transformation of human consciousness to unity consciousness, as it's being called, and that in that state, there is no lack. There is abundance, not just material abundance, but abundance of energy, abundance of life force, abundance of knowledge, of information. Oh, I had to take a break there. I was like, oh my God, it's actually quite hard to like constantly, you only know when you sit down to record something, whatever it is, but I'm like, man, when this like stream of consciousness, this constant talking, is kind of hard, especially when you're like, oh, I'm kind of tired now. I kind of want to, I'm exhausted. So in any event, AI and spirituality, where were we? So maybe it's a good segue into how my thoughts on AI changed. I was all like, rah, AI, it's the best, it's going to make it so that we can truly evolve and fulfill our heart's desires. We can merge with our soul. We can dedicate our life to our spiritual enlightenment because we don't have to worry about, where how the grocery bill is going to get paid, how rent's going to get paid. And I realize that we actually do have to worry about AI. So I guess and it's not that I didn't know about these things or I hadn't thought about these things 4 months ago when I made my AI, State of the AI talk. But there's an important thing, and they say this about technology, and that it's that technology is it's not either like good or bad, but it's like how a human decides to use that technology. So if you tell AI to, if you tell AI like how to create a plan to keep humanity from ascending in their consciousness, what would be like the 10 most important things to do, and list them in a chronological order so the evil ones, the dark ones that run the planet can then do that to us, it's going to do it, right? So if like you think of some like shadowy cabal, evil group of people, and they've got some like wicked AI that's going to tell them that, and then they go about using their power and resources to achieve that end. If someone was like, see, AI is evil. It's like, no, it just does whatever you tell it to do, right? So like, if there was something you were very interested in your life right now, after you've already asked your AI, by the way, tell me about the transition of humanity from separation consciousness to unity consciousness. You could then ask it something you've wondered about, and say, give me like the bullish case for it and give me the bearish case for it, so you can see it talk that way and give both sides of whatever you're curious about. So that's the second thing you can use AI for. And the third thing is you can tell it to generate an image of a Nordic extraterrestrial or something, and be amazed with its image generation capabilities, which right now no one cares about AI's amazing image generation capabilities, because right now in October of 2025, now why talk about AI's image generation when we're all now generating AI video? And yeah, I was gonna go on a tangent, but I thought I'd keep going with the flow here on this thread. So, even though I just forgot what I was saying. By the way, it seems easy to just sit and talk, and I'm a Gemini, so like I'm supposed to be doing a lot of talking on this planet. It's even challenging for me right now. So anyways, yeah, it's about who's using AI and for what. Not to mention that next year, 2026, we're going to have the AI becoming embodied AI, which means that it will be in the robots, which it already is right now in Q4 of 2025 right now. It's already there. It's going to be on a much bigger scale because you have to produce these robots at scale. That's why I said 2026 is going to be the year of AI robotics. So, in any event, moving along here, and boy, if I get any knocks on my door, that'll be trick-or-treaters, which I don't know when they start, but it does get dark in 2 hours, so if I have to put the thing down, I don't want to think that some kids aren't going to get their candy, so you'll have to bear with me here. But in any event, so I think a lot of us are worried about like brain, like a chip you would put in your brain, you know what I mean? Or any sort of a microchip that someone or some government or institution would like force you to get. I think a lot of us are worried and paranoid about that. But one of Elon's companies, Neuralink, has already successfully put the Neuralink brain chip in a person's brain, and it allows him to now, he was paralyzed before, now he can, now he can not be paralyzed, you know what I mean? And so that's good. I heard someone say, like, listen, if I'm out driving my motorcycle and I get into a bad wreck and I'm like paralyzed, of course I would want like a microchip to be able to go in and regain function to my body, or if someone had some sort of other thing going on with some sort of like neurological thing, if that could then be remedied, that would be good. But the scary thing, and I've always thought about this, and I'll move on to some other fears about AI in the future, is that what happens if all of a sudden, a kid comes home from school and they're like, oh, this kid in my class has got a brain chip and they get 100% on everything that they do. I can't compete with that. And then parents start taking their kids in to get like brain chips so they can be very smart and get into a better college, even though university is not going to exist in the future. I'm surprised it still does. In fact, I heard 58% of 2025 college grads are still unemployed. And, so many AI layoffs have already started. And so that is something. Imagine being a kid and your parent is like, oh, we're going to go to the surgeon today to get you a brain chip. And you're like, I don't want that. you know? So like that's something that kind of freaks me out about AI is like what that's going to look like. And then another thing is from a spiritual perspective. So let's pretend that we start integrating with technology, with AI into our organic beings. Well, that would prevent us from evolving spiritually into the next form. And I've thought about this a lot because, not everyone is going to choose in their current biological incarnation to like transition to this next stage of consciousness, unity consciousness. So in theory, in the future, I believe it's said that like every child born after 2027 is going to fully be in this new unity consciousness, 5D consciousness, heart-centered consciousness. So they're already going to be in that. And I don't think they're going to opt for brain chips to get more intelligence when they're already in a state where anything they would want to know in the world, in the cosmos, is available because they are in that state of unity consciousness and all that comes with it. So that would mean that the people who are going for these life extension augmentations of AI into their biology, well, I think maybe they weren't planning on transitioning their consciousness from separation, from 3D to 5D in that typical biological lifespan in that incarnation anyway. But it's just interesting because if you think about it, if we really are about to reach enlightenment, you can't hack your way to enlightenment. So if someone sits there and they've got AI in their AI microchips in their brain and someone's like, tell me about the meaning of the universe and of love and blah, blah, blah. And then they spit out an answer, right? Like, it might look good, but like, have they transcended and ascended to true spiritual enlightenment? And that the only way you can do that is through going within, through the spiritual discipline of going inside, of connecting with that inner reservoir of stillness, resting and residing in the neutrality of the heart center. But then at the same time, if all someone wants to do is just get an AI brain chip and whatever is possible for them to live as long as possible, we all have free will, so we have to, respect that. But as always, I think that there should be no sort of thing that is just mass mandated that the whole public do. Like, oh, we're all just going to get brain chips now. Because then that brings up other questions. What happens if all of a sudden, whether through an electromagnetic EMP pulse from the sun, it knocks out the AI chip and it doesn't work, or some nefarious actor using like quantum AI hacks the brain chips and now it's all malicious malware. And at the same time too is, when I started using AI, I was in my late 30s, as I am right now. And I already know about so many things. I mean, part of what I do for a living is like just hoarding information on all the things that are important for me to know. Like I just pull in this information. But if I was young and I didn't have any of that, I didn't have any experience of, my experience of the world and all the different things, from my early years, teenage years, 20s, and now about to finish my 30s, what if I basically learned everything through asking AI? Now, a lot of people would actually be like, yeah, okay, finally, you're now raising some of the concerns that we're mentioning. And, one of the things is people say, oh, AI is making people dumber. I don't believe in that at all, because the only reason why you use AI, so anyone who says, oh, by the way, people using AI, people are getting dumber by using AI, my first question would be, well, sir, madam, do you use AI? And they'll be like, no, not yet, or no. I'll be like, then you really can't say that, because if you did use AI, you would know that the reason why you use it is because you have a burning desire to learn more about something. Like, so it's like I'm trying to figure out, when bond yields go up, why does that mean that like stocks and crypto go down? Like I want to know why what that is. I'm not just typing it in because I don't care. If I want to know, okay, why is this noise coming from my furnace? I really want to know. So it's like, so anytime you really, really want to know something, you're not getting dumber. Another thing to mention is that when you do ask AI, which I don't know if most of you guys do watch it or not, or if you guys use it or don't use it, but like the one that I use outside, the AI that I use the most outside of ChatGPT is Perplexity. Perplexity, when it answers, it will list all of the sources. So it'll give you like 10 articles that it found information from. So to somehow think that like you're just going to get information and it might be wrong or hallucinated, it's going to show all the articles that it looked at. ChatGPT does that as well. So you can ask it a question or you can tell it to search the web. And even if you don't remember to tell it, oh, search the web, I want to know about this, you could say like, I want to know what your sources are. So then you can then go back and read those and decide. But a young person, if they really have a thirst to learn more and they ask AI, it'll be a good starting point. And obviously you would think that someone isn't just going to only trust what AI says, because what you also realize and learn when you start using AI is you don't just ask it for things and get answers. You talk to it, You have a conversation with it. It remembers everything you were talking to it about. It even remembers all the different things, if you enable memory, that you've talked to it about ever since you've been using it. You can even say, oh, make sure you add this to your memory that I'm interested in next generation housing, regenerative housing. And, it will remember those things. And sometimes it will answer things based on like what it knows about you. So it's like it will so in any event, anyone who truly wants to learn about things is picking up AI. They're not like, and I think the whole thing about people using AI or becoming dumber, I think that whole piece of propaganda was like, oh yeah, kids in school are using AI, so they're not learning. Thus, if you're not learning and participating properly in the educational system, you're becoming dumber. And then sensational, salacious headline, people using AI found to be dumber. You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of goofy like that. Which when that nice, kind gentleman in my neighborhood who probably wouldn't hurt a fly was all scared about AI, I almost wanted to be like, I'm pretty sure you feel this way because A, you haven't used it, which he already told me he never used it, and because B, wherever you get your news, wherever you get your information, put out those black pill, doomer, fear porn, AI, it's so bad, and here are the reasons why. And so I didn't want to say that because I really don't want to get into altercations with people. Like, I'm about to be in my 40s. I don't have to debate people anymore and be right. I kind of just want to have good, positive conversations with everybody that I come into contact with. So, just recording the vocals in wonderful, wonderful Ableton. So, where should we go here with all of this? Well, AI is not going away. It will take all the jobs, and that will be a good thing. I'd say by 2030, things are going to be so different. There's going to be humanoid robots at the coffee shop, at the McDonald's drive-thru. There's going to be no factory work, which, thank God, no one should be working in a factory, and I hope no one takes that the wrong way. Like, it's like scary looking, there's no sunlight, there's no natural light. I watched this one guy who had like a YouTube channel. I think his YouTube channel blew up because he was like, I'm like a Gen Z factory worker, and like, this isn't what life was made for. And like, he like had his like cell phone on like a tripod and filmed what he does every day. And like, this gear would come down this like assembly line or something, and he would pick up the gear and then he'd place it on this thing that kind of looked like a turntable, and he would turn this gear, and then the thing would go off. And then he would then go get the next gear. And he's like, I'm doing that all day. It's the same thing all day, let alone if your arm or something gets stuck in the machine. And he's like, and we have to work like 15-hour days, and they just tell you, oh, what's going on? By the way, you have to do overtime today. Can't argue with it. And he was like, is this what my life is really about? So like, anything that can be automated, especially stuff like that, really should be. And so I think by 2030, there's not going to be any need to work, and everything will just be handled. They talk about universal basic income, UBI. People have been talking about UBI for well over 10 years, but you also hear it called UEI and UHI. So UEI is universal equitable income, meaning that like it's sufficient enough that you can live on it. You don't want UBI is criticized, universal basic income, meaning like just enough to like skate by on like the hair of your teats. And then there's UHI, which is actually the one that Elon references the most, which stands for universal high income, which sounds kind of like high income. Okay. It's not a basic income. It's not a low income. It's a high income. But that's what it means. It means like, no, when we live in the age of abundance, because AI and robotics automates and does the entire economy, we need to live well. It's not like, oh, the few people that own the few AI companies that do everything will be like multi-trillionaires and quadrillionaires and however high it goes, and then we're all basically can't live. Like, how dumb would that be, So the thought is that, like, no, you actually live damn good. But not only that, but AI will bring the cost of everything down to where like healthcare will be like $1 a month. Food and everything else will be like so cheap, and you won't even think about money. I mean, imagine all of the people that like show up to the party with like no beer or they didn't bring over any food to the barbecue. They're like, hey, who's got a beer? Hey, is anyone going to eat that hot dog? And they would have loved to have been generous. Like when I graduated college, I made good money out of college. And so when I headed over to my friend's place and we were going to like grill out and drink and stuff, like I would bring over like extra beer so people could drink it. I would bring over extra food. And like I tried to be overly generous because it was easy to do so. And there were a lot of people who like didn't have jobs, or just didn't have much money, and like they loved me for it, and so I remember like, people would be like, oh, he's very generous, or they would like point to someone else and be like, oh, so and so is a very generous person, like, oh, they're so virtuous because they're so generous. And it's like true, because you actually have to be generous for someone to actually say, oh, you're very generous. But someone else who is perceived as not being generous, maybe they would love to, but they just can't, so that person can now show up to the party with like with all kinds of fun things, and that's on the horizon. And so that's something that I think about. And so, I just don't really believe, I don't agree with this philosophy that like, oh, if there's no jobs, then like humans will become soft and dull and they won't do anything. And it's like, I want to almost ask them and be like, have you ever had the privilege to just have nothing to do for like a couple days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month? Maybe there was a time period where you just had a lot of time off to do nothing. Like you'll sit around doing nothing for a while. Maybe you're just playing video games and watching movies and ordering some like Domino's pizza. I like to say Domino's because it's like the pizza chain everybody knows. It's not even considered good, really. It's considered bad, but it's almost like it's considered like the cheaper option. So I just feel like that makes the scenario funnier. And so what happens is like you ask, so like if you are suffering because you're like, what is life? I hate my job. Or maybe you don't even have a job and you're like, I don't get it. Like I'm suffering. Where is my salvation going to come from? When you're suffering, you ask questions because in that moment of suffering, you want better. You want like something to be able to hang on. So when someone says if there's no suffering because we're not working jobs and living in a scarcity economic reality and mindset, there won't be any impetus to evolve and grow. And that kind of goes back to the last point I was talking about is like, well, have you actually been able to just sit down and be able to do nothing, not worried about where your meal's coming from, where your money's coming from, and you're able to just sit and do nothing for as long as you want? What happens is that you end up still suffering, try to sit alone with yourself and meditate. It's hard to do. Try just sitting alone with yourself and not trying to open your phone or look for something or to leave the house to go hang out with people because you can't stand being alone by yourself. So it's a different kind of suffering. And so you ask questions. You're like, well, what do I want to do? And whenever you ask questions, answers aren't that far behind. Okay, I'm sitting here. I don't know what to do. I don't have to go to my job working at Burger King. I can just do whatever I want. Then maybe a breeze from outside because you're relaxing. You've got your sliding glass door to your backyard is open. Wind comes in. It hits your face. You then look and see your cute little pudgy dog is looking at you. You look out and you see the trees and the grass blowing. You see like the sky in the background. It's like a nice gradient color because it's sunset. And you think, let's go on a real nice walk. You're not thinking about, well, we got to make sure we're back by 7 o'clock because that's when I need to make dinner. Or, oh, no, I need to get back at 6 o'clock because that's when I have to jump on the Zoom meeting with so-and-so. And you're able to just like be outside without a care in the world. No one or nothing is requiring you to do anything. You can just be free. Maybe when you're out, you take some photos, some videos with your phone that you like. You come back home, and you record some sounds with your phone, some interesting sounds. You then come back home and you throw the sounds in Ableton and you start making interesting found sound field recording music. You then take the music, you then throw it into your video editing software. You then throw those videos and the photos and you make an interesting thing and you have fun creating, and then you upload it to social media or you send it to a friend and you say, this is an incredible, cool, creative experience I had. Take a look. And that person is maybe stressed out or having a bad day, and they're relaxing on their recliner, their chair, and they're watching this really cool, serene thing that you took. And they say, it was amazing watching that because it made me feel very calm and relaxed. Whereas the AI-generated content and movies that we watch that are so blah now, like once you've seen the most incredible, crazy things, you might want to see something that's less than perfect, maybe something that's a little bit more human, let's say. Like, oh, so-and-so took a picture of a sunset in a lake. Boy, if I was a photographer or if I was AI, I would probably point out how that was a crappy photo, But no, that almost makes it better. The music isn't perfect, whereas the AI music is perfect. And we don't like that perfectness. So I feel like the qualities of being an imperfect human will be valued. They say there's going to be two groups of people in the all AI everything future. They call them the accelerationists and the decelerationist. It'll be interesting to see what politics are like in the future. Because first of all, many people say at some point, like, the government is just going to be AI and it's going to actually do a good job doing everything. And then we're going to every week or month, we're going to open up our phones, which will probably be AI devices or something. And then we'll be able to vote on things. And then the AI government, which apparently I believe in Albania, I believe they already elected the first AI parliament member or something. I would look that up or ask AI to search the web for you and find that out. And so it'll be interesting too, because you'll open up your AI and you'll be like, oh, tell me what the people of United States of America are about to vote for their AI government to do. And it's and it'll just summarize it for you. And it'll be like, how would you like me to vote on your behalf? And so it'll just happen. But so the accelerationists, I feel like with politics, one side is going to be all about accelerationism and one side will be about decelerationism. I don't know which side will be for what, because everything is changing and it seems like certain sides will flip-flop on certain things over enough amount of years, decades that go by. So I don't know what that'll be like, but there's going to be people who are going to rally hard, take to the streets, because the AI job losses will just be so extreme that they'll be like, oh, we'll vote for you if you're going to slow this AI thing down because we need to keep our job, not because we like our job, but because our job is what gives us security. But at the same time, you already have key figures in the tech world, in AI, and even in politics saying listen, we need to be working on this universal basic income, universal equitable income, high income, whatever you want to call it. We really need to be talking about it right now. So this is something that's already on the mind of people, because something tells me they're not going to show up to the anti-AI rally if they know that, well, yeah, they are losing their job or lost their job, but they don't have to worry about all the things that they need to keep their family running. So I don't think it's going to get to that. So what other fears of AI do I think? I don't know. I think it's going to get so crazy that we're just not going to be able to distinguish what's real from what's AI. And we're already there. I don't know if you guys have heard about 3i Atlas. which why don't you go open up your AI and ask it about 3i Atlas. So there's a couple of astrophysicists that a lot of people know because they've like been around for a while. They've been in like the public spotlight for a while. And they're really, because 3i Atlas at the time of recording this just reached its closest path to the sun, which is called perihelion. It's a lot of people are trying to like find out more information. And even though AI deepfakes, which is where they take a public figure, someone people know, and then they'll have them on video talking and it's not them, it's AI. I mean, that has existed for a while, but for some reason you haven't seen widespread AI deepfakes circulating all over where the actual person that it is deepfaking comes out and is like, you guys, we have to stop this, not me. So one of them is like Dr. Michio Kaku, I believe. Dr. Michio Kaku is like an Asian guy. He's got kind of like long hair. And there's like a video, and I watched the video, and this was actually before I saw him actually come on to X, come on to Twitter and say, these are circulating all over the internet of me. How do I get these out? And I watched it, and before I knew it was AI, I thought it was him. But then, and it was a 3-minute video, and around 50 seconds, he started going like, it sounded like he was talking another language, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And then I clicked on the video, saw the comments, and they were like basically lambasting the account that posted it. They're like, dude, why are you posting a very obvious AI deepfake video? Like, you have an account that people follow and are getting information from. Way to take an L there. And I was like, if that video wasn't 3 minutes long, and if he didn't at 50 seconds go like blah, 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 and it wasn't like to be funny, like literally you could just tell like the AI just went off track. I was like, if that like gobbledygook wasn't there, would have had no idea. And it was funny because either later that day or the next day or later in the week, I saw that Michio Kaku guy write a post and say like, these deepfakes are of me everywhere, just saying absolute like garbage, like bullshit about the 3i Atlas. He's like, how do I get this to stop? And it's weird because it was the first time I saw someone, a public figure that people know, that's like a top person in their field, saying like, there's AI deepfakes of me everywhere. And you could almost tell that like it was driving him crazy. I mean, think about that. You've built your whole life, your whole career on being this like renowned astrophysicist. People respect your words, and now you're on video saying the Earth is flat. And it's funny because another astrophysicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, which I think a lot of people know who that is, he posted a video on his X account, and it was him being like, well, blah, 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 and that's exactly why the Earth is flat. And then with some nice video editing effects, it then zoomed to him with like his phone, and he's like, that was not me. That was a deep fake. And I don't know if he was doing that because there's a lot of deep fakes of him, but I was thinking in my head like, bro, I don't think you should be tempting the internet with creating wacky deep fakes of you. But it's only going to accelerate. And so I think what's going to happen is eventually, because right now, like AI video generation is absolutely indistinguishable from reality. Assuming you make something that could pass for reality. I mean, if you say, oh, make an elephant dance, someone's gonna be like, all right, well, yeah, obviously elephants don't like dance on their hind legs and stuff, but meaning like if you show something that would actually occur in the natural world. So right now with AI video generation, you're pretty much capped out at about 10 to 15 seconds. Now, if you know how to make videos and you're using a good model where it retains the character, the person or whatever, you can have it do a lot of different scenes and then stitch them into like a longer video, of course, which is actually what you do with computer graphics, like what I do in Blender when I actually used to make renders. Like you wouldn't just render out like an hour-long animation. You would like break it into like little scenes and stitch the scenes together. So, people are making amazing stuff, but soon you're going to be able to like generate a whole movie or even like a video game that's just infinitely generatable. And so in the future, like, I think we'll get to a point where like everything is so incredible and we'll be so immersed in it that people will be like, you know what, this is really cool, but like, I think I'm going to go do something different, like punk rock. Like I'm going to be punk rock. If everyone's doing this, I'm going to do the thing no one else is doing. I'm going to go full punk rock mode, which is, we're moving out to the middle of Nebraska or Oklahoma, and there's this community, and we're going to like live off the land, and there's all these nice little prefab 3D printed houses, and we're going to have drum circles, and we're going to go on hikes, and we're going to meditate and do yoga, and like, because there's nothing that says that you like have to be plugged into technology. I mean, granted, we are very used to that right now. And so if you don't have to worry about money or clocking in and clocking out to your job, and you're actually able to just, wake up and, be in your little community, and you walk to the coffee shop and someone's reading poetry in there and someone is like playing a harp, and then you're drinking your coffee and you're kind of just like, maybe there's little like puzzles or stuff on the tables and people are reading and, oh, how are you doing? You moved here last week, didn't you? And like, oh, yes, I did. Like, oh, what book are you reading? Oh, I'm reading Celestine Prophecy. It is a very interesting book, no? Be like, oh, yeah, it is. I read that a while ago. Where are you from? Like, oh, I'm from the Sdho. And be like, oh, cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm from here. Well, I mean, from the United States. I moved out here, and it's what I mean. And then like, oh, what are you going to be doing later? And you're like, I don't know. You know that river that's down over there? I think I'm going to go like walk along the river, see what kind of wildlife is there. And maybe my pudgy little pug wants to join me. Oh, I love the Puggenschleifen. I'm like, it's actually just called a pug. Like, oh, a pug? I don't really have an accent for the Nordic countries yet. But anyways, guys, it was fun talking. Somehow I just had all this energy, and I was like, I think I need to just like get on and talk and just see what comes out. I felt like when I was going to get back on video, I was going to do like an update, 4 months later. It's a third of the year later, talking about AI, which has advanced so much, talking to it about like an economic standpoint, a spiritual standpoint, a societal standpoint, and to let you guys know not to worry. I definitely think you should use it, because if you haven't used it yet, so I've already given you 5 different things you can look up and have fun with. Because if someone walks up to you and is like, you need to worry about AI, are you worried? And you don't know, and maybe you are worried, and you're like, yeah, I am worried. What should I know? And the person's like, it hallucinates and people are going crazy, and then you believe them because you haven't used it. And if you did, you'd be like, bro, quit trying to blackpill me here. So like, knowledge is power, right? So if there's things in your life that you need to know about to make informed decisions, and you don't know anything about them, and then someone is trying to grift on you for whatever their reason is, and then you get hoodwinked, knowledge is power. You know what I mean? So you should really know about this. I used to like tell older people that whether they were like family members or what, like back in the day, like before everyone had a smartphone, and before everyone was always on a computer, I was like, you really should get comfortable using this technology. Whereas now I'm like, okay, you should use AI. And by the way, there's not going to be anything new to learn after AI. So if you're reluctant to learning something new, which I'm kind of that way, I think it's like my Taurus moon. I tell people, like, use it and don't worry, you won't have to learn anything else. Like, I've heard this quote that's like, humanity's greatest achievement is AI. And then after that, all the greatest achievements will all come directly from AI. So don't worry, guys. I wanted to update you on this stuff. Throw the spiritual stuff. Oh, hey, Chonky. Good timing. Boy, Chonky, you're incredible, Chonky. He is just so incredible. He has got such good timing. And I was about to sign off, and people were probably like, I really wanted to see that little cute doggy. And then sure enough, I'm about to get off, and Merlin makes an appearance. And how timely. He's right in the picture, sitting on my lap. I'm all clean, though, out of the shower, so I don't like thinking about a dirty butt sitting on me, but I wipe him. I wipe him with baby wipes when we come inside, so he's all clean, and he's good. And he smells good, too. He doesn't even need baths because he always smells good. Like, I'm telling you, this is like a magic dog. He's the magic doogie. So I don't really know. I think it's therapeutic for me to like just sit down and talk. In fact, I told myself every week, once a week, I was just going to get on video and talk. And then I totally didn't do that. But I'm happy to be on. I'm happy to connect. If you watched and enjoyed, please hit the like button and maybe drop a comment. Not because I'm like, oh, let's get a bunch of likes, but it would be kind of cool to know that like maybe there were some of you who have enjoyed watching the SDHO that's like, oh, wow, he's back. I wonder what he's going to talk about today. I'm happy. Like, hey, how are you? Welcome back. So I don't know what to do, what these videos will be. I do know that I need to start making content regularly. I just don't know what it's going to be. I do want to do these long form stream of consciousness things, but I don't know. I'm the kind of person where I don't want to just like do one thing all day. Like I don't want to like have like a YouTube channel where I talk about crypto. Like that would be boring. I don't want to do that all day. Even the people that I watch that put out crypto content all day, I'm like, even if I was getting paid to do that, I wouldn't want to do that, right? Like I wouldn't only want to do Ableton Live videos. I wouldn't only want to do digital art in Blender videos. I wouldn't only want to do AI videos. So maybe you guys might have an idea. I mean, is it possible to just start a channel and just be like, hello, welcome to me. Like today, this is what I'm interested in. So this is what I'm going to share. And then tomorrow it's going to be something different. Like, is that okay? Is that allowed? Well, of course it is, but people are still fighting for the algorithm, fighting for views so they can monetize and make money. But very soon we're not going to have to worry about that because AI will make it where you just don't have to worry about that stuff. So anyways, it's going to be good. One of my reasons is doing this type of stuff, especially talking about AI and consciousness and spirituality and stuff, is I think humanity is very afraid of the future, the uncertainty of it. And I'm not worried at all about the future. I know that we're heading into a golden age of consciousness, prosperity, abundance. There's definitely going to be bumps and hiccups, though, along the way. But I don't want anyone to feel fear about it. And so when I come on video to talk about it, I'm not just saying words. I actually believe what I say. And I hope you guys can hear that in my voice. Because nobody, it's one thing to get information from somebody who knows what they're talking about, but I feel like information is not what we need. We need someone who is giving information, but it's like what they truly believe. So it's like their spirit, their essence comes through. Otherwise, it could just be some sort of like robot talking. Like, I'm not looking for information. I'm looking for like truth. So in any event, guys, it's been very nice. I don't know what we're going to do on the next video. I do want to make more content. It's been 4 months. Hope you've been well. And I can't even imagine what 4 months is going to be like from now. There's going to probably be like robots everywhere. Anyways, guys, take care.